Hello, Zoe.
Hey, how are you, Scott?
I'm good. I'm
Great.
good. I want to introduce you to everybody, and you have so many titles. But the one I like the most is the first one I've ever heard was soul stylist. I mean, that just rolls off. What is a soul stylist?
So I was coming up for a way to describe everything that I was embodying. And initially it started off as the Jedi coach because I realized that what I was doing was working with life force energy, mind, body. And then it dawned on me that what was happening was because of the practices of the mind, the body, what I started to do was my soul calling started to come through. Same with clients that I was working with. And the best way to describe it was about soul styling. It's giving people the tools to allow their soul to be expressed in whatever their divine calling is. Everything that I teach and embody is my own journey from suffering, from adversity, to eliminating things like depression, anxiety. For me, it was PTSD as well. I'm finding my way through, through that journey of coming from rock bottom. So I went off track a lot of times to really fine tune. But on that journey of going off track, I also would learn different things along the way. I started to notice that people were being more drawn to me. People were feeling, they were wanting to know what it was that I was doing that they weren't tapping into, where they'd done formal tantric training. I did some training in sensual massage. I never did any formal tantric training, but the more and more I studied the mind, the more and more I studied these different modalities, what started to happen was, and my teacher said it to me, you don't need to study it. You are embodying it. It's an embodiment within you. And so that again was like a different realm for me, learning how to navigate. If you can imagine, you've got more energy flowing through your body. So then not only people are feeling stuff from you, but you're then learning how do I manage this? How do I feel into this new energy that I'm feeling into? And also being very, treating it with the highest level of respect, because it can be manipulated so easily.
Yeah. Can I just interrupt you for a second? For anybody who
Yeah.
doesn't understand, could you explain what Tantra is?
For me, what I understand Tantra to be, it's about learning to work with the energies of the body. So it's learning to work, we're magnetic in nature, we're electromagnetic. So we have a masculine and we have feminine forces flowing through us consistently. For me, it's learning about how to manage those energies, how to work with the breath, because the breath has an impact on all those energies. And then also learning how to relate to one another, how to connect with another soul on a deep level of really gazing into their eyes, of intimacy, and learning how to relate with one another. I mean, there's other stuff that goes with it, but I like to keep things simple. I want to make it relatable for people rather than getting caught up in a fancy word. Yes, it's tuned into the sexual energies,
right?
But this life force energy, it's sexual in nature, it's sensual in nature. And the way I see it, it's all about that intimate connection with your soul, with yourself. The most beautiful journey we can ever go on is learning how to feel into what we've forgotten. When we were children, we were excited, we were creative, we have this amazing imagination. And then there gets a time where all of a sudden we're told, or whatever the meaning we give things from what we see in the world, that aspect of ourselves gets forgotten, and it's stirring the creativity. It's tapping into the juiciness of the feminine, is to say, which is like your creativity, your imagination. So if someone's playing a musical instrument, when they play the musical instrument, they have that beautiful, yummy feeling through their body. That's the life force energy. Now, when you can feel into that, and then you start being able to use that with your partner, and you'll basically dance. It's like this push-pull of energies.
It's phenomenal, because when you speak of it this way, very eloquently too, by the way, it's really like, this is why I wanted to talk to you, because it's really easy to understand you. When you're talking about blocks, we have different blocks, but I know what blocks are. You know what I mean? It's very clear, and I can see the magnitude of what that did to my life. These blocks take over and deny and deny and deny, and your soul never grows. You just stay stuck. And if you're not awoke, what you think is, it's cool. This is who I am, and I'm doing this, and you own all this bullshit pride and all this other stuff that's going on. And it's as I try to grow, I can see the limitations that I never even knew were there. You know, that a lot of it's self-imposed too, just by not being awake and searching. So that's why your journey is so unique to me.
No, you're exactly right. We can't conceptualize something, we can't understand something, because it feels so normal until we have something that either brings us to that place of immense pain or suffering or rock bottom, of that real contrast. Then, or basically someone as simple as, I've had it with people, I've just simply put my hands on them, or I've held them, or I've made eye contact with them, and they don't even, at first they're looking away, and then you're holding gaze and you're telling them it's okay, it's safe, and I have you, it's okay. Most people have never heard those words. They're the words that they want to hear. They want to hear it's okay, and you almost give them permission. It's okay. I don't need to have my shit together. I don't need to be, you know, it's in Australia, we have this really bad habit where people say, I don't know if you have it over there in the US, but people say,
if it's a bad habit, I'm sure we do.
How you doing, mate? How you doing, mate? But they really are not interested.
Of course, yeah.
It's a habit, right?
Yep. But you know what? You want to really mess somebody up like that? When somebody says, how you doing? And you know it's an empty question, just go, emotionally? You brought up the word trauma. Yeah. We spoke a little bit about this prior. You have had some, I mean, these are the motivating factors in your being. Are you cool talking about them?
Totally. Stuff. But when I was 17 and went on holiday with my dad, and we had this argument, and I basically got in a car with people I didn't know, went drinking with them. I was raped for 6 hours, and so yeah, I kept it quiet for 2 years, and it really hit me when I was away at boarding school. We were playing Truth or Dare, and that's when it all came out, and it was like taking the lid off a volcano. If you can imagine, you've got this resentment, you've got this rage, you've got this guilt and shame and all these underlying, you know, and this anger. And as soon as I said what had happened, that was it. I just lost it. And I had a first out-of-body experience. And what I understand from that was the trauma, the release of that was so immense that I basically got kicked out of my my energetic body, got kicked out of my body.
And this is your first conscious experience, right? So you don't know that that's what it is in the moment.
I started going through rape counseling. But then what I started noticing, I started embellishing the story.
For what? Why?
When I look back on it, what I started then doing unconsciously was I would play on it. So if I, it was another thing attached of my story. And when people are in a story, they don't realize that, like we're in survival mode. We're
Right.
finding a way to survive. It's not right. It's not
There's a
wrong.
manipulative agenda.
Yeah, but we that's all we know. We're
Right.
learning how to survive because
Right.
it gives us three: attention, affection, acknowledgement. They all translate to love, of feeling love. If I get this. Now, my mum had been through a lot of emotional stuff when my dad left when I was 6, and I stopped crying. I didn't cry from the age of 6 until the age of oh, 13, 14. So I completely suppressed my emotions. I stopped crying. I went from a very creative, I was a performer, I was a dancer, I was always entertaining people, a very happy child, so just very, very numb inside. So my mum was obviously trying to reach out to me. I then had a lot of sickness as a teenager. And it's that whole, your mum's wanting to protect. She's wanting to be there to nourish, to hold. And you can never reject, you can never push a child away. But it's like it becomes this codependent, becomes this the victim and the savior.
The roles
right?
that you
Right.
you assume,
And the role play. And then following the rape, then I would go into relationships, and like coming into the sexual stuff. After that, some people either they're totally turned off sex. For me, I went the other way. I started craving and became promiscuous with friends at school because I felt that was a way that I could feel love. So it was, really interesting looking at that. And for that moment, I felt free and I felt love and I felt affection, but I wasn't able to have a healthy relationship with a man. Right, because of I never really had that male role model. I never knew what that meant. And so
do you think when you said you stopped crying at 6 till like whatever it was 12 or something like that, do you think like you went from this, because earlier you mentioned the divine, the feminine, do you think you go from being like a feminine little girl to then feeling like almost obligated to invest in your masculinity, almost to protect yourself and to just kind of not be so vulnerable?
I think the creative. I was still very creative, but the carefreeness of you're very confused. My limiting belief was why I'm not good enough, and why am I not lovable? And then like you have that limiting belief, which is we all have these,
and that's how you felt when your dad left. You're just like, what did I do? Like,
well, it's a normal reaction from any child. It's a normal reaction from any child to, it's, and the point I've got to now, which is beautiful, is to, I hung on to the story. I'd always put my dad on a pedestal, and my dad was this beautiful soul that taught me to follow my heart. He taught, I learned from him to always honor my heart. That's what he did. He chose another life. But I realize as well now, going back from other lifetimes that I've had and other soul lifetimes, my lesson in life was to heal abandonment. It was the same through a lot of healings that I've had done with other people. They've said that was my thing, was abandonment. So it was like that was my thing that I came here to heal. And I feel that as I believe no one can ever abandon us. It's only ourselves that can abandon us. You reach a point where you create stories around everything.
Oh, believe me, I know.
It becomes so heavy. And the fact was, and this will make more relevance when I say about the other thing, the fact was my dad left home because my dad left home.
Right. But it devastated you because you're a child and it's your dad.
Well, but it wasn't his intention. It wasn't
Granted, but yeah, right. I didn't mean to hurt you, but you're fucking hurt.
right. So then you've got a man who's very established in his career. And that was the whole thing around writing the book Completeness. It was about the inner child, because I realized as I went through my own journey, through healing my own inner child, when all of a sudden I realized I created everything that I didn't want. I was the single mom. I'd had the affair. I'd done everything that my dad had done that I'd said I never want to do, right? So then finding myself with two small children and going, how can I be there for these two small children where in the inside I feel like a child? And I realized from me actually going through that and healing that, he'd never really honored his inner child. He was still in that place of worthlessness, helplessness, hopelessness.
Right, and we call it, we disguise it and give it a nice, comfortable term so that we can rationalize it by calling it a midlife crisis.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you want to call it, it's that part of our personality. It's the part of the ego. It's the part of the personality. It's part of.
It's also part of the lie.
Right, but it's about honoring the shadow, honoring the darkness. On my journey, it's flipped me into a lot of darkness. Now, for me, I see the gifts in the darkness. I see the beauty in the darkness. I don't see it as a scary place anymore. It was basically there for me to remember who I came here to be. So people are numb out and we avoid things, and we make it into be something so scary in our mind. And sometimes you understand this, when you're at a point of rock bottom, you only have two choices. You're either going to do something else, or you're going to rot there and die, or you're going to get back up and start climbing.
There's no motivation, no motivating force. There's not even a close second. It's fear and fear alone. And when the fear is great enough, you'll fucking move. I don't care what you've been through. And if it's not, yeah. And there's some people that have a great tolerance to depth, like as far as the depths you can reach emotionally. Like you can really hit, there's bottoms, beneath bottoms, beneath bottoms, beneath bottoms. And some people's pain is just so great. And it doesn't take a whole lot. Like you like that, what you've already spoke about is enough trauma for most people. That's enough, but there's much more to come, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a believer that suffering is good. Suffering is a normal part of.
Yeah, suffering is good, but time is valuable. And how much time are you going to volunteer to suffer?
Exactly, but suffering is a doorway. It's like sadness is a doorway to find peace.
But go through the fucking door.
Go through the fucking door. You can't sit there bitching and complaining because
But once again, the fear can definitely just paralyze you.
Well, the fear can paralyze you. You create more of it, but fear gets stuck in the body. You can't always just get rid of it here. It's stuck in the body. It's it's allowing it to release.
But this is why your approach is just so intriguing, because you have, based on your experiences and the insight that you've gained from those experiences, you've developed your approach.
Yeah.
And it's different. I mean, it's very different. It's very nurturing and very loving, but also it can be very misconstrued.
There are a lot of blank spots. There's a lot of dark spots. Sometimes because, you've numbed out, you've checked out on drugs and different things to find some level of, it's almost like some freedom to remember who I was, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a total sense.
In a state of being, people would never understand it, but I was like, well, when I was in that drug state, on the inside before that, I would feel very out of control. When I was in that state, all of a sudden I felt really tuned into my soul. I was dancing, I was creating, I was drawing. This bullshit of I'm not good enough, all that stuff, it wasn't there. I felt really in my essence, and it was a beautiful doorway. I remember hearing Ram Dass saying that LSD was this doorway into expanding his imagination and seeing things on a
Ah, the
different level. I
60s,
was like,
right?
well, I'm a creative. Like my family, never done drugs, stuff like that, and
Right.
I was the creative wild one. But I have no regrets. Moving forward, probably 2 years, then I have a major trauma, and I'm a nurse working in Sydney and driving to work, and there's a teenager on the road, and my car make impact with it, and I kill the teenager. That was a massive, um, again, out of my body, kicked out of my body,
And how
watching
far,
it.
when this happened, are you still in that, like, are you out of that self-destructive part of your life, or is there still a little bit of that lingering?
You know, I'm still struggling with. I've just started training bodybuilding. I'm struggling with low self-esteem. Um, I had a beautiful partner at the time. He was the same. Finding our way through life.
So you're kind of in a
And
good place when this
I'm in a good
happened.
place, but at weekends I'm still smoking weed. Um,
Yeah,
and I'm in Australia. I've got no family here. All my family are in the UK at this point.
right.
So, and he's not even around because he's in. He got busted for growing, so he's in weekend detention. And so this incident happens, and yeah, it was again another bumped out of my body, like major trauma.
Yeah.
And it was investigated. I went to the police station. Someone was watching over me that day as well.
In what
Because when the
sense?
police, well, there was a stand up. There was a guy that was in the side streets. It was early in the morning, and it was on my way to work. And he came and stopped me from going over and seeing the body.
Which could have shattered you.
This is the thing about trauma, and how it gets stuck in the body and trapped in the body. I would, I would, I would forget. I would each year it would come up, and what's it now? Coming up 17 years now, and this is the first time that I was able to really let it go. Each year it would come up, and I would. It was the weirdest thing, Scott. Um, I would feel off. I would I would feel something wasn't right, but I didn't know what it was. And then it would hit me, and then I'd remember, and I'd go through my whole thing, lighting a candle, and I would be a wreck. And then last year, it hit me really, really bad, and wrote this poem about it, and was really, really lost for like 3 days, and reaching out to people that I knew on Facebook, and
Lost in what? The
it
sadness?
I just was really like it was some really deep stuff coming out and letting it out. And I was realizing how much I was still carrying this stuff, still holding on to it. And then it was back in November last year that I reached a point, and I'm smiling because to get to this point felt free. And, it was like with my dad. My dad left home because my dad left home. I was raped, and I was raped because I was raped. Like, it's factual. It has no. This is like to everyone out there. You reach a point and you realize it has no
It
holding
has as
on.
much power as you give it.
Right, and it's like I killed a teenager. I killed a teenager by beating myself up and going over that and going into it time and time again. What purpose is that serving me? So
Well,
it's like,
I think
what?
eventually, obviously, it becomes detrimental at a certain point. But isn't there an obligation as
No,
just as a
God, the body remembers. This is what I'm saying. Like it would come out of, like I did so much trauma release. I released other traumas in my body. This thing would still be sitting there.
Yeah, but it's that big though. It's not like these other things were big, but they weren't that big. This is big. This is heavy. This is really, really. It's on another level.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm basing my that remark on you're sharing these stories with me. I'm thinking, as I'm listening to them, this other stuff is really, heavy, but this is really, really heavy. It's not nothing. Yes, you have to move on, but that's a process. This one is a real investment. Did you feel some kind of sense of obligation to honor um, that person? Like, did you feel like I should be like sometimes my experience is that there's a warped sense of thinking and feeling like if I punish myself, that's how I am. You never went through anything like that? No.
No, I decided he was 18, and I've lost other friends that have died really young, and each of them, I feel like I carry an aspect of them with me. So I started living life for two people. And you start noticing a pattern, you have things that are so out of your control. Everybody is here for different reasons. Everybody, some people are here short, whatever it was, I don't have any control over that. Whatever his path was, I don't know what that was, but I live life every day. Like to, and now I am so clear on what my passion is and what my purpose. Like that to me completely juices my soul. I was like, there's nothing that makes you feel so alive as that, right?
Yeah.
Like there's nothing that comes close to that, no matter what has happened to you, no matter what you've been through. And I always find that you see some people that have been through the most adversity you can't even get your head around, have this inner strength that comes out.
How attractive is that to you when you saw that, like, and still see that in people? When you see them, like, that's real. Like, after what you've been through, when you see somebody else, you go like, wow, that's a lot. When you think somebody else has been through so much, based on your experiences, it has to be a lot.
Yeah, it's whatever it is, it can be huge. It's I think we get so stuck in the a lot of people like, yeah, but that's far worse, and they.
Yeah, but for you, what you've been through, when you say something is worse, it's fucking bad. I mean, it's a lot on somebody's plate. Let's say that bad is probably not the right word, but there's overwhelming. And then if I say something's overwhelming, it has a certain impact. Each person has, it's a reflection of what I've been through. But when you've been through what you've been through and you say somebody else's life and you go, whoa, that means there's a lot there for it to impact you that way after what you've been through. Am I wrong?
I never compare it because it's.
I mean, subconsciously, just based on your experience, you go like, well, I've been hit in the head with a rock. So now when I see a boulder crush a family in a car, that's more traumatic than getting hit in the head with a rock. Most people never got hit in the head with a rock, so they don't. They think that's bad, and you're going, yeah, well,
you get to a point and you've got to look at. I don't think you can compare anything because it's for whatever we need to learn.
I don't think I'm being clear. What I'm trying to ask you is almost like when you see somebody that's dealing with something that you consider to be really heavy, then you would say, like, I admire the way that person's conducting themselves after being through what they've been through. It just, you get impressed, no? I mean, isn't that just human nature? Go like, wow, that's really admirable, the way they're, dealing.
No, I think we're all learning to be human. We're remembering to be human. It's I have the highest respect and compassion for whatever people have to go through, but it doesn't define them. It doesn't define them. It's sometimes the messages have to get louder and louder until we wake up. And knowing now more about myself, of how quickly I manifest things and how quickly I attract things. I'm a powerful manifestor. I'm a powerful attractor.
Yeah, definitely.
At the time, I'm not good enough. I'm a piece of shit. I'm worthless. I'm hopeless. I'm helpless. Blah, blah, blah. Like, energy attracts energy. Energy attracts energy. I look at the person from when I was raped and all that stuff. I see it. I'm grateful for that. Yes, it's not right. I have a gratitude for it, because that person that also raped me also felt worthless, also felt angry, also felt a need to have to overpower for whatever reason. And in that, I hope that something in me has given them some light. Does that make sense? Like, it's the weirdest concept for people to put their head around. And I took responsibility for it. As soon as we can take responsibility for it and we have ownership of our actions,
yeah,
freedom, no matter what it is.
But we all know how hard that is. It's all, what you just said there is on the level of somebody, like, let's say a family, a mom and dad have a child that's murdered, and then they say, I forgive the person that killed my child, right? That's a level of compassion that is probably the greatest. I mean, because it's not you, it's your child. To forgive the person that violated that, I don't know if I could. In fact, I would say right now I couldn't. And there's no shame in saying that, because that's a big step. You really have to evolve to get to that point. But when I see somebody say that, like at a news conference after a court case or something on TV, I'm going like, wow, do they really mean that? Like, if you really have that kind of forgiveness, that's a wow.
Who's playing? This is the thing. It's like people out there are judging constantly, judging about this, judging that. Everyone's playing the fucking judge. When does it stop? You stop pointing the finger, because guaranteed they've probably been the one on the receiving end as well.
When I think I know when you stop. When the pain becomes great enough. When you realize you're hurting yourself and you're depriving yourself because you're holding on to that hate.
And you're stopping yourself from being free. You're stopping yourself from receiving love and happiness and really honoring who you do have in your life now. Then, or you can stay stuck in the hate.
But there's also people that are conditioned to be very comfortable in that space.
Yeah, because it gives you attention, it gives you acknowledgement, it makes you feel worthy for you. It embellishes your rightness.
Yeah, but you don't know it as that. Like, if you're conditioned, if you're brought up to say it's okay to hate, or these are not things that a child is born with. These are things that are learned. You learn how to hate. You're not born with hate. Nobody's born with hate.
You learn it from your parents.
Whoever you learn it from. I mean, that's another thing. But it's a learned behavior. If you're conditioned to say that's acceptable and you're responsible, not only is it acceptable, but retribution is required. And there's a whole justification for this way of thinking. But that's why, I find you fascinating with this, because the door doesn't open until it gets so dark. It has to be pitch black for some people. Like, obviously you're able to do things, you're able to accomplish things, you're able to succeed. So for you, and you're high energy, you're high energy. So it's going to take a lot. God's probably sitting up there and goes, I got a full day's work today. I got to wake her up. Your tree had to really be shook. Right? And for some reason, that has opened you, because also the walls that you built. A lot of when you talk about the layers, we call it the onion. You have to take a layer at a time to peel that onion to get right. You build those layers. They're all like defense mechanisms, right? You made a hell of a fucking. You dug a moat. You built a wall. You got an army. There's a lot to go through to break that down, to get to the point of vulnerability where then you can be where you are emotionally. It's a hard journey. So you're almost going at vapor speed.
I feel the things that I've had to go through have, like you said, they've built that strength of will. They've built that resilience, and that, because I know the path that I'm walking, a lot of people aren't going to like it. They're not going to understand it. Firstly, and having the courage to be able to walk alone and to stay really know that it's also what they need. They may not want it, but it's also what they need. And being able to open a door in a very beautiful way so they can start to see that within themselves, so they can heal. All that sexual rage I went through, it was like that, and abusive partners and disempower, having my power taken away. What it taught me was no one can ever take your power away. So all these lessons were perfect to, and even, like I didn't even cover that, hating the way my body looked, all that stuff. They were beautiful paths to go through the suffering, to heal the pain, to go through that perfect journey to now the heart opening even more each and every day. And I've still got so much more to unravel.
What you just called a perfect journey, though.
I'm grateful for it. I believe it's all there for what I needed to go through, to learn compassion, to learn love,
That's
to
the
learn
word. That's yeah.
To learn mercy, to have the gift of mercy for people, to see the best in them no matter what. We judge so much. I saw a guy today, and this was really interesting, when I was in Newtown, and he's there in broad daylight, sitting in the gutter, banging up with a needle. And whereas before I would have looked at him and I just looked at him and smiled and carried on walking. But it was, yeah, just there's 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 so much of everything that we see out there is a pure reflection of what we're not loving within ourselves. And if that means we need to go through stuff, if that stuff we need to experience stuff so we can understand who we are.
But you can feel that guy's pain. That guy in the gutter with a needle in his arm. You know his pain.
I know his pain, but it's
everybody
also
doesn't.
Right, but it's also we all have choices we make. I don't know where he is in his choices either.
No. But I'm just referring to the way that you can empathize with him is because your pain came from where it came from, but that sense of emptiness, that vacant soul, that hole in your belly that can't be filled. There's nothing external that can fill it, and and then there's self-infliction on top of that, and it just spirals, and people die, and it's a going nowhere, dead end going nowhere. But most people can't relate, and that's what I think when you say judgment. I mean, that's where people come into judgment, because they don't know that pain. They don't. You can't. There's a line in a song that goes, "If you ever felt the pain inside, I know you'd understand." Because that's and that's what happens. You become like, there's a kindred spirit that you bond with, a complete stranger, over a sad moment, or something like that, on a deep level. But you have to, because you went through what you went through. That's the silver lining in the gray cloud. And I won't even say gray cloud.
And also understanding energy, that what it's like when someone looks at you. Like I feel judgment, I hear judgment from, like I said to you, from a lot of females.
Yes. Yeah.
And I feel it. They don't even have to say it. I feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really in a place of being really grounded and stable in who I am. It still cuts, and I'm like, well,
mm-hmm.
How does the overweight person feel, when they're eating or something? And
well, how about this? How about I can tell you that I've been in that guy's shoes, where I never did needles, but I know what it's like to feel that down, and then have somebody, come out of somewhere in life and just identify with me, and I feel like this person understands. It's like a breakthrough. I needed to see those examples of people that have been through what I've been through. And I got to see people that have been through 1,000 times more than I've been through. And they recovered and are recovering. And they're doing better and they change. And then there's no way I can deny seeing that. I'm experiencing it right now. Like, this is the truth. I believe it to be the truth. And if they can do it, so can I. And some people, and then even on another level, people that take the time. When I'm so wound up, I can't shut up, and I'm just a hard person to hang with sometimes, and people take the time and the patience to want me to get better. No strings attached. I never even believed that was possible. Somebody could just care for somebody else, no strings attached. There's not a marriage that's not strings attached. I mean, how could that be? But there is real. I know, but when you hit the depths of despair, you see things differently, and that's what an awakening really is at some point, or it could be one form of it anyway.
Contrast.
Yeah.
Contrast.
Yeah.